Hey gang, sorry for the technical difficulties. My timing is not what it used to be. I thought that Central Time was only an hour difference, but that's that wacky daylight savings time. Just to start off, just letting you guys know that my friends Alex and Haley are helping out here tonight, and so they'll be looking at some of the questions and things like that. What I thought I would do is just kind of walk you around my house, which kind of the whole house is sort of like the studio because I work here. So I sit on the sofa sometimes I'm in my office, sometimes in my studio. So without further ado, I'm just going to walk you guys around and just kind of show you stuff. The last time I did an interview online, I think I was in front of the bookcase because it always looks good to have books behind you. I like to think it makes you look smarter than you actually are, which is why I do it. Let's see. That's a pool table. That's for relaxing. This is the bar area. And excuse the mess, it's just kind of what it is. If any of you guys are a Frazetta fan, that's a real Frazetta picture there. Let's see, this is my TV, movie room, kitchen, and this is not an episode of Cribs or This Old House or anything, but I just thought you guys would like to see stuff. Let's see. This is my messy office. Up on the wall there is that's the original Bowen logo that Stephen Hickman painted. And here's a wall of artwork that I've gotten over the years from friends and artists that I really like. You can see a Mignola piece, Bill Stout, some Spider-Man, Walt Simonson, Kelly Jones, some Bruce Timm art, and just various things in my hallway. This is some cover art from the Vampira piece that Thomas Kuntz sculpted. John K. Snyder did the artwork. And you guys seen any questions?
Oh, yes.
What kind of questions do we have?
Not quite yet.
Oh, not quite yet. All right. So I'm still kind of getting set up. I'm a little behind on getting this whole thing set up, but this is the studio. You can kind of see some of the just various crap I have lying around. I'm just going to give you guys little glimpses of my junk that's sitting around here. This is a fairly recent piece. This is this fish guy bust I did. I still have 4 or 5 of these left if somebody's interested. And just various things, various works in progress. This is a commission piece. This is going to be Bizarro from Old School Superman. And this is stuff that is just, that I've just had laying around over the years. Yeah.
Clark Step asked, what's the Master Sculptor's sculpting collection look like? What is your collection of, where all your statues are?
Oh, Clark, I really don't have my stuff very well displayed. The collectors have far better collections. Just for when people come over to the house, I have a little bit of stuff that's up on my shelf. And the idea is I'm just gonna rotate these things every once in a while because I get tired of looking at my own stuff. I'd rather look at other people's creations. This is, some of you guys might know that I have a ray gun collection, and I like old rockets and spaceships and robots. You can get a little sense of what's going on. Probably shouldn't have this stuff in my studio, but my current studio is not as big as my old one. When I'm doing really messy stuff, I go over to a warehouse space that I have that's much better set up for doing grinding and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's what I got going on. So let me see if I can work this new rig. I'm gonna try to get some things set up. Again, I thought I had another hour before this thing was beginning, so I'm a little unprepared. So what I'm gonna do is try to get something set up to work on. And if you guys think of any questions you'd like to ask in the meantime, that would be great. Hey Alex, you want to see if you can work this tripod? I'm gonna grab some of my tools here.
Okay.
We've got people from Chile and Brazil saying hello.
Hello, Chile in Brazil. Is it Chile in Chile? Sorry.
What do you want me to do with this tripod? Move it over to?
Well, yeah, when I start working. What I thought I'd do is show you guys some of my my tools also. So some of the things that I use I've made, or like this is a piece I made out of a deer antler. This thing is good for doing musculature and actually wrinkles in clothes and things like that. This is a piece that I made out of just a wood dowel, dipped it in some resin to kind of give it a shinier feel to it. And then for people who don't know who I am or what I do, about 20 some years ago, there was no pre-painted statue industry. I used to build model kits when I was a kid and things like that, and I started doing garage kits in my garage, strangely enough. And I was taking these things to conventions and things like that, just selling them as unpainted, unbuilt model kits. And within about the span of a year, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, and Dark Horse Comics all got a hold of me and wanted me to start doing sculptures for their companies. And before then, I had been doing some commission sculpting for the Chinese toy market. I had never even heard of Dragon Ball Z, but I was sculpting Dragon Ball Z characters for the Chinese market. And then when I got hired to be on staff at Dark Horse, one of the things that was attractive to them was the fact that I knew how to get production done overseas. That had not really been done before. Hey Mark, how's it going, buddy? Mark Newman checking in. Mark is one of the guys that was really influential to me when I first started, because even though I had done sculpture in high school, just in wax, doing a few bronzes, I was lucky enough to have one of the few high schools in the country that had a bronze sculpting program. And I had moved into the San Francisco Bay Area, and one of the people I met was Mark Newman, who does all the fantastic stuff does all the sideshow Court of the Dead, among other things, and the Thomas Blackshear pieces that he had done that were so awesome. Anyway, Mark turned me on to different sculpting techniques and things like that very early on. Hey, Ray Villafane, how's it going, buddy? Jared, hey, sorry, trying to read. Yeah, definitely Mark. Anyway, oh wow, Paul Mendoza, cool. Anyway, so yeah, so started doing stuff for DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, and after a couple of years, I thought, what am I doing? I'm making all this money for these companies, and so I decided to quit my staff job at Dark Horse, and at the time, there wasn't any licensing. Hey Sean, how's it going, buddy? At the time, Marvel was transitioning. I had done 1 or 2 pieces for Marvel's collectibles department, and then there was an opportunity for me to get my own licensing. And so I, at the time, it was easy to get a license because, you know, no one was doing this kind of stuff. So I got the Marvel license, was still doing stuff for Dark Horse, and I phased out of doing stuff for DC because I just didn't have time to focus. Just the stuff with Marvel took all of my time. So let's see, other things that people know me for. If you ever watch the show Seinfeld, there's a Superman statue that is on the shelf of almost every episode except for the first season. Not a piece I'm very proud of, but millions of people have seen it. So if I'm trying to explain to people what I do, then that's you know, that's a quick way of saying. So let's see. I'm going to, I guess, do some sculpting and see what's up here. Alex, I'm going to see if you can, maybe you can even just do a handheld like this.
Yeah. Not a problem.
This is a table I like. This is a hospital table. It's adjustable, it's fairly cheap. And let's see.
Look back here, see what.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to, let's see.
Maybe put it on this table here?
Yeah. Sorry guys, we're just getting set up. Here, let me move these things.
And this is a tripod, so we can. Sorry, gang.
Yep. Promise if I ever do this again, I'll be a little more prepared.
There we go.
Let's see. Might need you to get a little bit closer here. And let's see. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading questions off my phone. Oh, hey Ray. No thanks necessary. You're a talented dude. You did it all, buddy. Digging what you're doing. Kevin Gorby, don't you have a possum to deal with or something? My friend Kevin, who just checked in, he's an amazing creator himself. He was at a party here once, and while he was at the party, he got into his van and was driving home. He discovered that a full-grown possum had climbed in through a crack in his door and had wedged itself up inside his vehicle, and it was wounded. Not that Kevin wounded it. I think he likes possums. But with...
He grabbed his leg up when he was driving.
Yeah, kind of grabbed hold of his leg, sort of like Baby Yoda, except with not as cute of a face.
And diseased.
And yeah, kind of diseased and damaged. Kevin took this sucker and nursed him back to health. Well, except that he died. Not Kevin, the possum. Anyway, So this is a bust I threw together. This is a companion piece for that fish guy bust that you guys might have seen. And let me see, try to get a better shot of it. Hey Alex,
Yes.
would you see if you can find some Sculpey over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, hey Matt, what's going down? Anyway, this is this fish guy that I sculpted recently. I did it for a HP Lovecraft show. Only made 25, but it seemed to be pretty popular. So I decided to do what this guy's girlfriend would look like. So that's what this piece is going to be eventually. It's got this little scene on the back also that's supposed to be the origin of how these fish people mated with humans. You know, nothing says Christmas like a good fish love story. So anyway, let's see if I can get a little closer.
Used to be a big bucket of Sculpey. Where did it all go?
Yeah, this is probably enough.
I can just keep. I guess.
Yeah. Alex, why don't you grab your phone or something so you could just be reading questions off to me too.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
And you got mine.
Let's see. This is, super Sculpey. This is the gray variety. Doesn't show fingerprints like the fleshy colored stuff. And so makes it nice to work with.
Got a lot of compliments on his Superman.
One of the reasons that I decided to do this video, a buddy of mine, Quentin O'Brien, he's on the Shiflett Brothers Forum. He had made the suggestion that there's a lot of tutorials that deal with sculpting, how to sculpt hands and faces and likenesses and all this other kind of stuff. But no one had ever really touched on the business of sculpting. And so if any of you have specific questions about that, I'm willing to answer. I don't know how helpful it is because things are, hey RJ, cool, glad you like it. Hey Mark Schneider, what are you doing? I thought you were working. You're always working. No, hardly anyone talks about the business of sculpting. So just a few things that, just basic business things that I would say that still apply if you want to do, and it depends what your idea of happiness is really, because you can be a sculptor for hire and just do, whether you're doing digital or traditional sculpting, and then you can also start your own company. The difference between now and when I started is there's a shit ton of people that now do this stuff, and it's a whole different ball game because now there's lots of big companies that are getting into the game. Even places like the Bradford Exchange that are doing superheroes and characters like that. But the thing, there's just basic things like don't accrue a lot of debt. Try to think in terms of your income not being physically linked to what you can do with your output. In other words, if you can make one thing and replicate it 10,000 times and someone else is doing that work, try to get to that point. Some people don't, with some people that's not their meaning of happiness. Their happiness is creating one thing and getting paid a lot of money for it. That's another way to do it. I decided, probably because I was super poor as a kid, I really couldn't afford comic books or really much of anything. The only thing I had to draw with was a ballpoint pen and some notebook paper. So that's, you have to just work with what you've got. And but I was lucky enough to get into like I said before, a high school that had some bronze foundry, and so there was that. And then it's, people say, well, you're lucky you met this person and you did this thing. In a way, you kind of make your own luck, because what you think about is what you're going to gravitate towards. And so, like, it was, in a way it's lucky, but also you have to make your own luck and put yourself in a position to where you are going to meet the right people, and you look at the right materials and things like that. As far as licensing opportunities, again, it's different from when I first started. So where there used to be thousands of untapped licenses, now just about everything has been done, except that new things are being created all the time, and we can, now there's these niche markets, and that's kind of what I've decided to focus on. I had back surgery last year, so it gave me time to think about, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And if I can do some original stuff, as well as think about some more licensing opportunities as they present themselves in the future, then that's a good thing. But for an aspiring artist, anybody who's a working artist, sculptor, illustrator, it's not an easy gig. You tend to spend a lot of time alone in a studio, or if you're lucky enough, you can be in a studio. But usually, my most productive work is when I'm just sitting by myself and listening to now it's podcasts. I used to listen to the History Channel and things like that when I'd worked, to try and broaden my mind as I was working. But it's not easy. And so now, where it used to be all traditional sculpture, digital sculpture didn't work. Thanks for everything you guys are saying. It's a different ball game now. So if someone were to ask me what advice I would give, I would say learn digital sculpting, because that's, if you're wanting to be a working sculptor, that's what most of the art directors are looking for, because I think it gives them more flexibility with the changes they can ask for. And with traditional sculpture, it's it's kind of frustrating, because for an artist, when you're working traditional, somebody will say, well, I don't like that arm, sculpt a whole new arm. Well, you're talking about days worth of work, as opposed to digital. You can make those changes in a matter of minutes, maybe a couple of hours, as opposed to days, depending on your skill level. But that's what I would say, is learn digital. But I'd like to think that people can also embrace traditional sculpture, because usually people who draw and people who do other forms of art, it strengthens traditional. To answer you, Matt, of course traditional can still be used, but just most art directors are looking for digital sculpture. And if you're selling your own stuff, more power to you. I mean, the Shiflett Brothers themselves, and hey, thanks guys again for giving me this platform. They're living proof that you can still do traditional work and still make a living at it. So it's something that you can do. But I personally think that people that have a background in traditional sculpture have an advantage over just someone who strictly has learned digital sculpting. And you know, it's something that people might not think they can do, but it's just going to make you that more valuable as an artist to be able to do both. What I'm trying to do here is work symmetrically, like if you move your thumbs across the surface, it helps with the symmetry a little bit. It also helps to have a mirror, not that you want to look at yourself unless you're doing some specific expression, but a mirror helps you to check your symmetry. You can also look at your camera and see things. Seems like there's always when you look at a photograph, you can always spot the shortcomings in your work easier, and than if you're just looking at a piece. Seems like the human brain has a way of correcting mistakes or inconsistencies in symmetry. Somebody's asking, where do I see the future going in the industry? It's digital. There's digital sculpting is just going to be, it's going to be here forever, basically. I was just telling the Shiflett Brothers earlier today, though, that traditional sculpture, I think, is going to be around forever, though, too. Somebody's always going to want to know that, oh, look who popped in, Quentin O'Brien, the mastermind. Anyway, I think traditional sculpture is always going to be around. Somebody's always going to want to know that somebody's hands were on a piece, but it's getting harder and harder to tell. But it's definitely something that you know, is going to be around. Have I sculpted quarter scale? I have sculpted quarter scale, just not very often. It's just my original thought with doing the originally it was about 1/7 scale, but I had was a fan of the Aurora model kits when I was a kid, and those are about 1/7, 1/8 scale. And so I wanted my statues to be a complement to those Aurora model kits that were around. And so that's where the scale came from. Plus I just thought that doing bigger stuff, it's definitely more impressive, and it's a cool thing. But it's also, you know, I have a pretty big house, and if I had all quarter scale stuff, I would be out of room immediately. And it's not to diss quarter scale stuff. If you got room to display it, that's awesome. I just don't have that much room to be able to have that much big stuff. But you know, it's a fun scale to work in, definitely. See. Just trying to see some of the questions here. Oh, for Ed Bradley, yeah. Are there any other characters I'd like to take another crack at? Sure. And that's the thing is, I'm in a position now, I'm kind of semi-retired. I can pretty much do anything I want. But I think what you're what you're asking is something that would actually be released to the public. I'd love to do Batman. Would love to do Batman would be a good one. But they're mostly ones that that I haven't done that would be fun. It's like a character like Space Ghost or stuff from my childhood that I have a like a sentimental attachment to. Yeah. Well, Mark, yeah, I have room, but if it was all quarter scale, I couldn't have as many. That's my only thing. Alex, would you do me a favor?
Yes.
I'm gonna have a bourbon, so this
More
this
bourbon.
conversation is gonna get a lot more interesting
Awesome.
here. Let's see. Somebody's asking, do you have any pointers on how to get better at sculpting faces? Who's Soren? Yeah. Sculpt more faces. Look at reference materials, especially look at profiles. If you're doing an actor or a likeness or something like that, look at their profile, because a lot of times I'll see sculptures that they look like the person from the front, but when you turn it to the side, it loses that likeness. So the side profile is something that's tough to it's tough to find profile pictures of some certain actors because they don't like their profile. Dang, these questions are coming fast now. Let's see. Bourbon, yes. Shoot, I missed a question from someone, but oh well. I'm just gonna keep rolling here. But as far as the business of sculpting goes, it's imperative, no matter what you're doing, not to accrue a lot of debt. Oh, hey, and people out there, join me in a drink. And here's a toast to my buddy Alex and Haley and my buddy Pippin, who's also filming this on a better camera than my iPhone. Let's see. Yeah. Hey, Don. Glad to see you around. Cheers. Let's see. In a minute here, I might even take a break and just show you guys some other stuff around the house that you might get a kick out of seeing. Like some of the pieces hardly anyone's seen because there were so few of them made is some of the Star Wars bronzes that I did. So I might show you some of that kind of stuff. And we'll just see how it goes. And to the Shiflett Brothers, sorry, I wasn't prepared. I should have actually looked up what the time difference was. But next time will be better.
Do you take in-studio questions, Randy?
Sure. Yeah, you guys can join in.
What's your favorite thing that you've ever sculpted? You
Um,
might have to repeat that question in case they can't hear me.
Oh yeah, from my live studio audience, the question was, "What's the favorite piece I've ever sculpted?" And the typical answer I give, it's not really based on the fact that I thought I did such a great job or anything, but it was because I'm a huge fan of a guy named Frank Frazetta, who's like an amazing fantasy artist who passed away a few years ago. Does all the barbarians. He pretty much defined the look of Conan the Barbarian. But I did a piece that I collaborated with him. He art directed a sculpture that I did called the Death Dealer. And the Death Dealer, it's the big barbarian, evil looking dude on a horse. And, it's because I got to hang out with the guy, meet him and his wife, and ultimately it was turned into a 25-foot high sculpture for an anti-terrorist segment of, I think, the Army.
Air Force.
Air Force. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Dion. Death dealer. Yeah. So, what I think I'll do.
Randy, another question. What's your 2 favorite sculpting tools?
Well, that's like saying, "What's your favorite child?" I don't really have a favorite. It just depends on what I'm doing. But I made these kind of tools. My pal Mark Newman is the one who showed me how to customize tools, and when I saw people making their own tools, it was a real epiphany for me. Some fun tools. This is one I found on eBay. It's not even a sculpting tool. I was just looking at weird stuff. This is a tool that's made out of a pig's rib bone. It's called a corn shucker, and it was made by someone who worked in a factory somewhere to take the kernels of corn off of massive amounts of corn on the cob. But it's just this nicely polished little piece of bone. I just like the tactile qualities. This is just one I pounded out of a piece of steel made with a little foam thing on it. If you ever sculpting reptiles or scaly creatures, here's a little thing you can do. It's I'm not sure if you can see that, but I just took a standard sculpting tool and took a round tip Dremel, and I made some little divots so that it's a repeating scale pattern. So let's see if I can demonstrate. So if I wanted this to be a scaly person, I'm not sure if it's going to focus right, but it's leaving a scale pattern on there. Yeah, but you can, and then you can augment that by sculpting in some detail.
Tap your phone.
What's that?
On the sculpture.
Tap your phone.
On the sculpture, so
It's getting washed out. They can't see it.
Oh. Well, does that help the lighting or something?
Adjust that.
Yeah, zoom in on
On the sculpture, because
Oh.
it's getting really washed out and they can't see what you're doing.
Okay. Let's see. Might be too much light. Let's try to kill this overhead light here.
for selling one-offs or commissions, how do you think about pricing?
For one-offs,
Yeah, one-offs or commissions?
yeah, just here's some advice that Neil Adams gave me one time. Neil Adams is the amazing classic artist known for his work on Batman, and he did some stuff on X-Men, and he's worked on everything in comics. Anyway, he said when negotiating your let's say there's a sculpture you're doing and it's a one-off, and you'd be happy with $5,000 for this thing, and your client, you know that they've got a large budget, and in your mind you're thinking, okay, I'd love to get 5,000, but how can I get that guy to the price? So this is the advice that Neil gave me. He said, say, well, my typical price is $20,000, but I'm willing to work with your budget. And so in that way, you're already blowing your own expectation out of the water, but you're also finding the high end of what your client will say. So ultimately, you have to be happy with the amount of work that you're putting into something, and the and the price that you get. And your client may hear $20,000 and go, "That's crazy. I'm just thinking more like $8,000. It's already $3,000 past what you were thinking." So that's one thing. The other thing is, And I'm not sure how it is now because I haven't had to do this in a long time. But if you're doing a commission, make sure you get 50% in advance. Don, you're saying show the horn? You mean my horn tool? Yeah, that's this thing. Yeah, that's a handy tool. Yeah, make sure you get 50% advance. That way, if your client bails, then at least you have something to cover the work that you've put into it. The other thing is it forces them to fulfill their part of the deal. So that's what I would say, and try to get it in writing. Try to do a contract if you can. There's a lot of contracts that are available online that you can download and customize to whatever your needs are. Trying to think. Do you guys have any questions out there that you think I should answer?
Yeah.
Tom wants to know if you've ever done a character completely all yours. So that would be epic. I know you.
Oh, is that Tom Keebler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom is amazing. Yeah, I've done characters like that. In fact, that's one of the things I want to do more of. And I've done some original stuff. I did a character called the Decapitator, and he was a very friendly guy. And he became a comic book through Dark Horse Comics. I did the Decapitator, did a character called the Jimmy Legs. And I got the name from that from, actually, there was a Seinfeld episode where there was a character who mentioned he had jumpy legs and nervous leg syndrome, and that's where the name from Jimmy Legs came from. But no, I've done lots of original stuff, but most of my stuff has been through licensing, and just because that's just, I have an adverse reaction to poverty. And because I grew up so poor, I found that was the most lucrative avenue for me. Now, someone was I was doing a podcast the other day, and somebody was asking me, they said, well, could somebody replicate the success that you've had today using your same methods? And I said, honestly, probably not. It's a whole different world out there with digital sculpting. There's state-sanctioned piracy basically in China. For anytime you send your stuff overseas, you can almost guarantee that somebody's going to bootleg it, especially if it's anything that's quality. Those are some of the things you have to deal with. Now, having said that, there's numerous examples of people who are very successful. If you look at people like the Shiflett Brothers, have done some phenomenal work and have grown as artists since I've known them. The Shiflett Brothers, I was joking with them a couple of weeks ago, is when I first met them, they were, I don't know if even, they might have still been teenagers when I met them. They both had fairly long hair, I remember that. But that's gone away. Yeah, just like mine. And the mullet is gone. Let's see, Quentin, the giant spoon on the other end. Not sure which tool that is. Sorry, dude, not able to find it. Let's see, trying to see some of the, oh shit, there's lots of questions.
Did you use them to touch real clean in their lives and don't put them to practice?
Let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the questions.
So, you will read that out?
Oh yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is take a little walk and show you guys some of the other stuff that I've sculpted. And if any of you need to take a a pee break or anything, now might be time to do it until I can walk to some of the other areas of the house. So bear with my shaky camera stuff. There's Pippin, the camera person. Alex. Let's see. I don't know if you guys can see some of this stuff. When I was setting up I moved from my old house after my divorce, and when I first moved, I was going to keep my house just completely almost sterile because I had too much stuff, like most of us. And but then I realized I have too much cool shit. And my friend Brian Bendis, I said, well, none of my stuff fits in my studio. He goes, you're divorced. Why not just have your whole house as the studio? I went, you know what? You got a point there. So that's kind of what I did. My whole house is filled with all my stuff. Let's see. Here's a piece. Let's see. I'm not sure how many of you seen this. This is bronze I did many years ago. This is the Rancor about to bite a pig guard. And on the base, there's some skeletal action. When I first did this, my aunts and uncles happened to be in town visiting, and I was going to use actual mouse bones that were contained in an owl pellet. An owl pellet is basically owl poop, and they eat a lot of mice and things like that. And so I had my aunts and uncles picking out mouse bones from owl shit. I ended up not using them because the mouse bones were too tiny. And let's see here. Let's see if I can get a shot of this. This is Boba Fett bronze that I did many years ago. And this is signed by the actual guy. This thing's heavy. Jeremy Bullock signed the base. Uh-oh. Hopefully I'm not losing the picture. Not sure if you can see that. It's probably in reverse. Jeremy Bullock signed that for me. Let's see, what else do I have? Well, a lot of this stuff is I collect like many of you, and some of this is just stuff that I like. The stuff in this case is not. The guy in the back is one that I did. He's called Man-Made Monster. That's Lon Chaney Jr. But this other piece, this is from Steve Wang. He did this Gillman from Monster Squad. And I met Steve. If any of you don't know who Steve Wang is, he's one of the best sculptors in Hollywood. But he lived in the same area that I lived in California, and delivered it to my house, which was kind of cool. But that's just one of many tales.
Quentin wants you to tell the story about
how you started, what statue?
what statue, like which 5 minibusts you picked to really kickstart the Bowen Designs line.
Well thought out, Quentin. No, my thinking on the original minibus, and for people who don't know what the minibusts are, it's a term that I coined because I didn't have anything else to call them. These are mini busts, these little sort of half figures. This is one that we released many years ago. But when I I had to get my foot in the door with Marvel. So the category of busts had not been done. So rather than start with Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk, Captain America, I decided to start with some odd characters, like Mole Man, Man-Thing, and I think the Incredible Hulk, Ant-Man. So what I was trying to do was pepper the lineup, do a popular one and do 4 or 5 obscure characters, because I wanted to send the message that this was going to be a continuing line, and so that's where the lineup came from. And I think, Alex, how many busts did I end up doing? Hundreds, right?
400.
Yeah, like around 400 different busts, not just sculpted by me, but by several other people that I was lucky enough to hire. That's one of the stories. Let's see, what else?
Golden Bucky bust was another fun one.
Oh, yeah. When I first released a bust of Captain America's sidekick, Bucky, I was trying to embody the positive qualities that Bucky had as a sidekick in the comics of the 1940s. And he was always kind of this happy-go-lucky kid who carried a machine gun. But he was smiling a lot when he wasn't being tortured by Nazis. He kind of had a smile on his face. So I decided to sculpt Bucky with a smile. Well, it was the advent of the internet, and people weighed in and they said, Bucky looks gay, Bucky is like a fruitcake, all of this kind of stuff. And they didn't like Bucky smiling. So I just thought, that's pretty harsh. So what I decided to do was make, I can't remember how many I did. I think I did like 100 gold-plated Buckies. So the same guys that were dissing the smiling Bucky were now having to bend over backwards to get the golden Bucky. Anyway, I do stuff like that to fuck with people sometimes. Anyway, here's just some weird shit that I have on my shelves. I have no real rhyme or reason to this stuff, other than I like a lot of weird things. This is let's see, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with a character called the Shadow, but he's a pulp character that's been around since I think the 1930s. It was in radio plays and things like that. But this was a bust that I did early on. This is kind of a quarter scale bust. I did this and Doc Savage in quarter scale, and we were supposed to do not only Doc Savage, but we were supposed to do Tarzan, a character called the Spider, and a bunch of other pulp characters. And the only ones that ended up coming out were Doc Savage and the Shadow. But I didn't have a real good sense of the reference material for the Shadow at the time. And I happened to know a well-respected comic book artist named Mike Kaluta, who is associated heavily with the Shadow. He probably has done besides the original pulp covers, he did the definitive work with the Shadow. And so Mike told me that the Shadow just didn't wear a cape. He wore an opera cape. And I'm going, what the hell is an opera cape? Well, it's kind of a half cape that covers up your shoulders and your coat so that when you go out in the rain, you don't get your coat wet. It's a coat over a coat. Anyway, he happened to have one of these things, and he modeled this thing. Somewhere I have a video of him modeling for this bust. And I should get it on digital and try to do a screen grab or something so I can embarrass him. But he's old enough. I don't think anything embarrasses anymore. Let's see, what other stuff do I have?
How about the Deadpool bust?
Oh, Deadpool?
That's the very first Deadpool statue.
Oh, yeah, this is, see if I can find Deadpool. I might need a hand. Anyway, let's see if I can get a shot of this. This is I think the first licensed Deadpool thing that was ever done is this mini bust. I didn't realize how popular Deadpool was until this bust came out. It became this very sought after piece. I was not a big Deadpool fan. I hadn't really read anything about Deadpool. I didn't really know what his deal was, and but people kept requesting the Deadpool. So I finally relented and did a Deadpool, and
With the change of it.
yeah, and then it was so popular that I re-released it, but the second version had a change-o head, which was another term I came up with, and it has sort of become an industry word. This is his scarred up face. And what was interesting is several years later, this was just a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, Image Comics had relocated to Portland, Oregon, where I'm from. And I got to meet Rob Liefeld. And my girlfriend and I were at this launch party for Image Comics, and my buddy Jim Valentino, who's one of the founders of Image Comics, he goes, "Would you like to meet Rob Liefeld and Robert Kirkman, the guy who created Walking Dead?" And my girlfriend doesn't know who any comic book characters are, but she does know who the Walking Dead are, and she does know who Deadpool is. And so to get to meet these guys was a bonus, but the even bigger bonus is when I met them, both Liefeld and Kirkman go, "Randy Bowen, no way!" And so it was a big 2 thumbs up from me to get that kind of reaction out of those guys. But
Action Deadpool is what got Deadpool on the screen.
say what now?
Remember, he told you that the Action Deadpool that you produced was what made it possible for the Deadpool movie to happen.
Oh, I forgot about that. I don't know if you could.
It wasn't realistic, and he brought your statue into the meeting.
Oh, yeah. I guess Liefeld brought the statue into the meeting, and that helped when they were doing the pitch to sell the movie. But anyway, there's a million stories like that. So.
Predator kits. How you started with Predator kits?
Oh yeah. I started doing many years ago. I was doing. I don't think I have a Predator here. Oh, hey, Shiflett Brothers. Here's something though. This thing. Here's a Shiflett Brothers piece. That is. This thing has been in my studio for years. I think it's awesome. I don't know how to pronounce that character's name, Dalkiel or something like that. Anyway, it's up there. And yeah, but I started off doing garage kits, and one of the very first pieces I did was Predator. And that's the Predator with the helmet and everything. Anyway, there was hardly any reference material. In fact, all that was out were VHS tapes at the time, so I had to do screen grabs or just freeze frame the VHS and to be able to get the reference material. And so that's how I got my reference material. Years later, I got to go to Stan Winston Studios when Stan Winston himself was still alive, and I got to see the actual Predator costume and meet the guys that worked on it and all that stuff. So I'm not just a sculptor, I'm also a fan of this stuff. So having this career has really been a cool entree to be able to get into, to meet these people. And that's the only advice I would say is, if you get to meet people like that, don't geek out too much because it makes them uncomfortable. I guess some like it, but it generally makes people uncomfortable. But hey, to meet Stan Winston and stuff like that, very, very awesome. Here's some other stuff. I'm gonna try to get some shots of different little projects that I've worked on. I don't know if you can see the girl riding the shark. These are things that are just little projects. This is the Uncle Creepy. That's Tony Cipriano. Sculpted that. Just various things. Anyway, hey gang, I think I'm gonna wrap it up, and I'll do another one of these days, and we'll just we'll do it another time. I'll be more prepared. I'll have my lighting set up. I'll have maybe a script, maybe some music. Maybe I'll show you a cocktail recipe, something like that. But
Fire might be going.
yeah, might have a crackling fire. Might have some cosplay, red rope, fuzzy boots, that sort of thing. But anyway, good to talk to you guys, and let's do it again, all right? Hey, thank you, Shiflett Brothers.